Hey everyone, and welcome to Three Black Women and Their White Coach,
a podcast where we have a conversation around navigating race in the coaching industry.
And we're your hosts.
I'm Catrice Stetson, your mixed race internet bestie and serial entrepreneur who's built multiple businesses from the ground up.
And I'm Brianna Lachelle, your biracial nonprofit coach whose focus is on helping support nonprofit leaders and founders create impact-driven organizations that radically change their communities for the better.
Here at Three Black Women and Their White Coach, we dive into hard conversations centered around racial inequity within the coaching space with softness and grace.
Our hearts are to open up these conversations and create a safe space for people to be seen, learn, and create a better, more inclusive environment for all.
So pull up a chair, your favorite snack, and a bevy while you yap with your new biz besties as we work to make the coaching industry a place where we all feel welcome and respected. In this premiere episode, we're diving headfirst into one of the most weaponized, misunderstood stereotypes, the angry Black woman. We'll share personal experiences, break down where this idea even came from, and explore how it shows up in the coaching industry. Whether you've been on the receiving end or you're just learning, this conversation is your invitation to unpack, unlearn, and hold space for the full humanity of Black women.
Before we really get started in today's conversation, we wanted to make something super clear. This space was created with love, not labels. While we'll be talking about racial dynamics in the coaching industry, some of which are difficult, uncomfortable, or even a little painful, we are not here to villainize white coaches or cast Black women or women of color as victims. We know this topic is layered. We know that every experience is unique, and we believe in the power of nuance, not one-size-fits-all narratives. Our goal is to hold space for honest reflection, real learning, and shared growth. This is a space rooted in care and community, where stories can be told, hard truths can be held, and all of us, regardless of our background, can walk away better than we came. So let's get into it.
Before we even fully dive into the conversation, I want to kind of define what is the angry Black woman trope. And that is a radicalized and gendered stereotype that frames Black women as irrationally angry, aggressive, hostile, or difficult, especially when asserting themselves or expressing emotion. It's typically used to silence and invalidate the emotions of Black women across generations.
But where did it even come from, right? So the Sapphire stereotype originated in minstrel shows in the early 20th century media. They painted Black women as emasculating, loud, domineering. And this idea was reinforced in films, TV shows, and politics, from sitcoms to reality TV, think Nene Leakes, caricatures, to media portrayals of Michelle Obama before and during her time in the White House. And it created as a response to Black women demanding power, respect, and visibility. So what does that mean for us today in the coaching space?
Oh, where to even begin? I feel like there are so many different implications within the coaching space. I mean, in coaching dynamics between coach to client, but also in the online space. But really, we're looking at like being labeled as difficult in masterminds. I don't know if you've experienced this, Brianna, but I have, where it's like, because I ask more questions and it's just because I'm a naturally like curious person. I was the why child. My mom would be like, tell me something. I'd be like, why?
Why?
Why? But being seen as difficult, or I was too much, taking up too much space. Or I've also been on that flip side where I've been ignored and like kind of just brushed over, like in conversation, where everyone else gets to answer and everyone else is white, or they're white passing. But then when I don't get a chance to even like speak my, give my feedback or ask my questions. So tell me about your experience. Like, where does it play into your life and your experience in the space?
Yeah, I think one, totally valid. That's definitely been like things that I've experienced myself within spaces. I think for me, this really shows up where I feel like I'm always on the defense of trying to be extra cautious of not becoming the angry Black woman. And so that really like deters me even sometimes of like showing up fully, of like completely like being angry about things that are going on, or being passionate even about things that I feel like are important, because I don't want to come off as the angry Black woman and then be completely disregard. And so I think it really for me has shown up in ways of like me having to either dull myself down or like be really cautious of like the word choices that I use, how I say things, like making sure that I stay like very soft spoken and I smile and all the things when inside I'm like raging, but I'm like, as soon as I turn on this like rage or this passion or like these big feelings, everything else I have to say, even if it's right, even if it's like good information, is automatically going to be dismissed because I'm just now the angry Black girl in the room. And so it's impacted like how I show up and like what things I feel even comfortable saying.
No, when you said almost being so conscious about like smiling,
Mm,
I felt that. Because so often when I'm sitting on coaching calls, whether I am the one, coaching clients or I am the client, I even was on office hours with my clients like yesterday before we felt like recorded this. And I remember actively thinking during the call, like, smile, make sure that
yeah,
you look soft. Like, don't look, even when I'm tired or I'm exhausted, like, there's like this, I don't want someone to take it the wrong way.
right. Yeah. Which is so hard because there's sometimes that like I'm not angry, I'm passionate. Like I believe in the things that I'm saying. And, as a coach, I think it's hard. I think it's almost layered, right? Like, so as a coach, you want to make sure that you are approachable, that your clients feel safe with you. And sometimes, especially if you're working with, a diverse clientele, that can shift between client to client. And I mean, even while we're talking about that, like, do you think that that's good? Like, do you think that that's a good way for us to be doing our coaching businesses as Black women, to be setting that example? Or is that something that like we should be conscious of showing up like the same way for everyone? But then that also causes other issues. What do you think?
I don't think again, so many layers, so nuanced
Right.
because it's one of those like you can never please everyone situation. Like someone's gonna
100%.
lose and someone's gonna win in some capacity. Like someone's gonna end up upset. I think that often when I am the one in the coaching seat and I'm the one doing the coaching, the consulting, whatever, I I find that it's never truly in the behavior, but it's in how I talk.
Mm,
And it's in how I mean, broad spectrum of clients. I have clients who are Black, white, Asian, Pacific Islander, all over the spectrum. But there's this, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but I can picture the call. One of my clients, she's Black, she's from Kansas City, Missouri, and we were on this group coaching call, and she said something, and I like responded back, but it was definitely one of those like inside joke, like cultural
things. Yeah.
responses.
Right.
And I think it's hard because it's being authentic versus not being authentic. Like
Yeah.
when I am talking to someone who is of color, who has, walked that walk kind of the same path that I have, that has experienced the things that I have, like there's jokes, little quips, things that come up that I just wouldn't be able to talk about, or not really talk about, but if I talked about it to like a white client or a white friend, like taking it fully out of like the coaching industry itself, but talking to a white friend, they just
Yeah.
wouldn't get it.
Right.
It's kind of like some of the experiences I have with Reese, like Reese being white. It's such a interesting dynamic. Or even looking at man versus woman, like the experience of living. I think that it's hard to say like, should we be more conscious of it because it also is like our authentic self. And like obviously we have an episode later on that will dive into code switching more.
Yeah.
But I think that so often it's, yeah, I mean it's just so layered. It's so layered. Like there is
Yeah.
no right answer, which is so hard because then we sit in this limbo.
Yeah, and I think like my personal philosophy is I try to be very open from the very beginning of like, okay, here's my expectations, here's what you're going to get from me, and I don't care who you are or what your background is. Like in terms of like my nonprofit coaching, I tell my founders like, hey, Like, I'm gonna love you, I'm gonna support you, I'm gonna be like big sis, but I'm also gonna hold you accountable. Like, if you say you're gonna do something, I expect you to do it. And that's kind of like where I land. And I think sometimes people are very like receptive to that of like, oh, okay, got it. I think sometimes people can get kind of turned off by it. And both are okay. Like, every coaching style isn't for every person. But I think like setting that tone from the very beginning and then consistently staying there, I think can be really helpful as a coach. As a client, I think that it gets even more tricky, especially if it's someone that you're not like super familiar with. Like when you're going into new coaching relationships where you're the client and you're it's someone that you've never met before. I think there's this time and space of kind of like scoping them out of and trying to figure out like, okay, what feels comfortable to you, what vibes are you giving me, do I feel comfortable in this space, and like picking up on how they are responding to other people who either look like me or who don't, and kind of trying to figure out, it's almost like a puzzle. So not only are you coaching or you're being coached, but then you're also like have this other layer of like trying to make sure that you almost like fit in or that you can click with this person. And I think not enough people talk about that, and it's a real disservice to coaches who aren't people of color or women of color, because I think they miss this piece that their clients are going through if they are Black women in some capacity, because there is this level of us trying to figure out like how do we fit within their space and what is okay and what is not, what is too much, and how are they going to respond, which
Mhm.
then impacts how we respond, right? How we move, how we show up to calls. And I think that that can be a really interesting piece that sometimes gets missed because we're not actively talking about it, right?
No, and even like when you set boundaries and it's being seen as like attitude, but you're like,
Mm,
okay, I'm trying to allow you to know where I stand on something, but also that fear of like, are you going to take me saying no, or I don't like that, or that's not really for me,
right.
as like attitude, she's being sassy,
She's
when it's
being
just like,
hard.
when truly we're just like, hey, like this is where the line is.
Yeah.
Don't cross that for me, please.
Yeah. I feel like even in that same vein, it also impacts like what advice we can take from a white coach. So, like for example, I have worked with predominantly white coaches. Love
Same.
white women who are in the coaching space. Like there's some really incredible people, but sometimes they miss the fact that I cannot always do and show up the way that they can, right? And so like I've had coaches with very good intentions like show up and be like, "Hey, maybe you should be angrier online. Like your brand is kind
Yeah.
of like powerful. There you're kind of like spicy. Like when you talk about this with me, you get fired up. Maybe you should do that more online. Maybe you should show up, like every time you get on stories, I notice that your hair and your makeup is done. Like, what if you just like pulled out your phone in bed and posted a story?" And I'm like, "Girly pop, I am in a bonnet. What do you mean?" And if I get on stories and start yelling, even if the words that I'm saying is good and respectful, my tone of voice is going to negate everything that I say. So I can't just be spicy on the internet. Like, and they like, I've had conversations with them and they're like, "I think you're just afraid." And I was like, "I think you just don't understand that like I do not have the privilege of doing that and being taken seriously in the same way that you do." And there's like this thing that doesn't click, and they're like, "But I do it." And I'm like, "I love this for you. However, I am a Black
You're like,
woman and that
not
does
for
not
me.
work."
You're like, for you, fabulous.
Love
Me,
it. Canceled.
I'm gonna get doxxed.
Literally. Yeah.
I can't with that because it's so true. And I mean, you and I have had these conversations, in preparation for recording, but also just in friendly conversation because, that's what we do is we talk about, being mixed, being Black. It's it's a struggle, especially in the entrepreneurial space and it's when we don't take that advice, we are also seen as, for lack of better terms, like difficult, where we
Mhm.
aren't, you know, oh, when something doesn't work out, when we don't get the results that this program has expected, oh, well, you didn't listen to the advice, but you also didn't adapt the advice and the guidance that you were giving
Mhm.
us to my experience. And when I told you I can't do that, like for instance, oh, why don't you record, pick up your phone in bed and record, the thought, I have to be so strategic. And I posted a story this morning from my bed. Of course, I got a lot of attention anyways because I had a typo,
Yeah.
but I so it was a yikes. It was a yikes. But I have to be so strategic about how I lay my hair when I'm laying in bed and if I'm going to record and how crazy is my hair.
Mhm.
Sometimes I literally sit up and I pull my hair back because usually I sit with a pineapple and the pineapple gets crazy. The pineapple
Mhm.
gets wild in the night. I wake up with my eye mask usually tangled into the pineapple. It's a scene.
Beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
a scene. I literally have to get up and then like pull, like slick back my hair and then put it back into its scrunchie before I can record, before I'm
Yeah.
comfortable with recording. I can't just be like, oh, like I have something to say. Let me just hop on like in the morning. No, I wish there's nothing I want more in life. I mean, there's other things that I want, but like I wish I could get up out of bed and be like camera ready.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
dream.
What a
What a
dream.
what a
But
privilege.
and I think that that's like the nuance, and I'm sure there's people listening right now who's like, okay, but is it really that big of a deal? Is that like, are you sure that actually is going to happen, or is this like in your head? And to that, I really want to say, because like even having these conversations, I mean, me and you have talked offline, and I've posed the question like, okay, is this really as big of a deal as we're making it? Like, should we even start this whole podcast? Like, are we just being sensitive, whatever, whatever? And I think that it's really important for us to recognize that, like, just because you could never imagine, if you're hearing this, doesn't negate the real experiences and the real feelings and the real, hurt or harm that we have had individually, even if it wasn't someone's intention, and even if isn't your same experience. So I think it's really important for us, as we're having these conversations, to really think through, like, okay, that might not happen for me, but wow, what if I viewed my clients, my women of color who I have in these programs, through a different lens, and at least was open to the idea that maybe they're not being difficult and they're just telling me the truth. Maybe they really can't do it that way. And then start getting more creative on how we can create options that feel more comfortable and in line with what these clients can do or feel safe doing?
Exactly. I think the lack of tailoring.
Yeah. The lack of thought to need to tailor, right? Because like the thing is that I'm sure a lot of people would want to be like, I create programs where everyone is equal and everybody has the same opportunity and I treat everyone the same. And I think like that's beautiful on a very surface level of what it means to be a coach and what it means to be inclusive. But I think true inclusivity means considering the lived experiences of the people who I'm working with, and recognizing that my experience might not be the same as them, and giving them options that feel attainable, because there is
Yeah,
differences, there is nuances, and the more that we deny that, the more that people suffer in silence, no matter what the race or ethnicity is.
and I think that something that needs to be considered, and we've probably all seen this image that I'm about to reference, but what is equal does not mean that it is equitable. Just because like everyone has I always think about the graphic of I guess kids standing at a baseball game and at the fence. Like
Mhm.
just because everyone can stand at the fence doesn't mean everyone can actually see the
See.
game and watch the game in the same way.
Right.
And then like obviously the graphic shows different, like what is equal, what is unfair, what is equitable, and equitable is like they each have little boxes and stuff that based on their height, make it able for them to watch the game. And it's not that we're not trying to be difficult, and we're very,
Yeah.
very aware of it. I think that's another aspect that isn't taken into consideration, is that when we decide to speak up, we are very hyper aware of the fact that we're going to be seen as difficult. Someone might say that we have an attitude, that we're angry, that we're blowing it out of proportion, when maybe, and sometimes we're just really passionate about it because we really want you to see us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not coming from this place of like anger and frustration, but it's coming from, I really love being supported by you, and I would really love it to be in a holistic capacity and for you to
Right.
see me as me.
Right. And I also think that it's important for us to note that we are biracial or mixed race women. Like the experiences of fully black women can be completely different because I mean, like, just looking at me, I am a pale skinned beauty. Like, I am I am light skinned. In the right, time of year, if I'm a little pasty in winter, like, I can be white passing, and I understand the privilege of that and understand that some of the experiences that I have is at such a lesser degree than other people who are fully African American, who are fully black, who are fully Hispanic, whatever the case may be. And yet I still have similar experiences. So it's not just it's not a one size fits all type of scenario, but there is like this aspect of we have to be conscious of like how our people are able to show up and like what adaptations they're making within themselves. I also think that this is also a huge reason why, well, I think there's many reasons, but I think this is one of the big reasons why sometimes women of color aren't seeing the same success because they're not able to like fully show up as themselves within their coaching containers, and they're not able to fully immerse into good coaching that they're receiving because it doesn't match their actual lived experiences, and then they feel like they're the problem when they're doing all the work, they're showing up as best as they can, they're doing all the things, but they're not seeing the same success as maybe some of their white coworkers or co-collaborators in the coaching
Yeah.
space that they're in. And I think that that can feel really disheartening, and I think it's important for us to state that it might not be your fault, boo. Like, it might just be that the system wasn't created for you. And that's not a slight on white coaches and programs. It's just something that we should be more aware of to help us move forward when we're creating masterminds, when we're creating containers, when we're doing one-on-ones.
Or even considering the experience that we have with the external world outside of the container. I
Yeah.
see this with my clients where I I would never label it to them as, oh, like the reason that you're not doing as well as someone else is because of X, Y, and Z, and part of that is because your skin color looks differently. But I have seen this, and I have tested it with my clients, where a lot of the time my white clients, how they show up online when they're following like frame by frame what I'm saying to post, they do really well.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those same exact things don't do as well for my black clients, for
Right.
my like mixed race clients, for my Asian clients, the ones who are not white, not Caucasian. And it plays into so many different aspects, like, being single versus being a mom, or just in a being in a relationship versus being a mom. Like, I don't have kids. I have a very different experience in how I'm able to show up and the things that I'm able to do, the time and effort that I'm able to put in to like actually get ready to show up, to be present. I think that sometimes that's also not, it's not just tailoring the advice, but it's also being very aware of like how the world sees us and perceives us. Just because I post the hook that you want me to post does not mean that I'm going to have the same success as you. And I mean, that
Right.
goes for a lot of different factors and reasons, but I'm always, not always hyper aware, but there are times where I'm scrolling and I watch these gals who I kind of grew up in the space with, who we, started our businesses around the same time. We post around the same amount. Like, we're kind of in the same industries or adjacent. And because I am not Caucasian, Pilates thin, like aesthetic home, all these different things that go into it, I don't have the same success
Yeah.
because I don't fit society's like definition of beauty and what is aspirable,
Yeah.
aspirational. I don't know why I said aspirable. LOL. Here I am,
It's fine. It's fine.
unfiltered.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's true. And in those cases, like that's not a white coach's fault. Like it's not a white coach's fault that, there's certain societal demands or expectations that make it
Yeah.
harder for their clients who aren't white like them. That's definitely not what we're saying. Like if you're listening to this right now and you feel like we're saying that it's white coaches' jobs to fix the system, that's not it. Not it at all, right?
But it's
But
be aware.
yeah, but being aware can change everything for your client because then it's because in coaching yes, like no matter what kind of coaching container I've ever been a part of, like yes, there's like the tactful, like if you're in a business coaching container, you're going to talk about your business. You're going to if you're like in some type of program that you're talking about like health stuff, you're going to talk about health. But like there's always the emotional and societal component that no matter what kind of coaching you're doing happens, right? Like part of business is good mindset. Part of, nonprofit work is leadership skills. Like those things are important. And so, even if you're not directly teaching on those, creating safe spaces for the people that you're working with is important. And the more aware that you are, the easier it's going to be for your clients to show up fully themselves. And when they do, we have to check ourselves in how we respond to them, right? Like I think that's a huge context is that like for what's appropriate usually is the calm, response like, okay, yeah, everything's fine, soft spoken. And we have to recognize that that's not how everybody expresses themselves. Like, especially like Black culture in general can be loud, it can be like very in your face. And when our clients show up that way, when we have first done the work to like, or they've done the work that they show up fully as themselves, we have to check our initial response because I mean, let's be honest, like I even do that sometimes, right? In professional settings, if I see other women of color and, they don't perform in the way that everyone expects them to, my initial reaction can sometimes be like, what are they doing? And then I have to also check myself and be like, they're showing up as themselves. They're happy, they're excited, they're whatever, they're upset, and they have a reason to be. And nothing that they said or their tone or whatever takes away from whatever it is that they were expressing. And I think that's something that we can all be conscious of and practice that how we respond to people showing up fully themselves matters. And as long as they're not being hurtful or harmful, like literally hurtful or literally harmful, not a perceived hurt or a perceived harm, but like they're physically hurting someone, they're cussing you out or something like that, that's different. Like we shouldn't let people do that. But as long as they're not hurting us, we need to stop being so quick to react to their tone and not listen to what they had to say? And I think that's important.
It's being aware of how you're holding the space. Like, are you
Yeah.
holding the space for them with the intent that you are going to correct that behavior? Or are you
Yeah.
holding the space with the idea that they're feeling what they're feeling and you're in this moment with them to walk alongside them in that feeling and
Yeah.
support them through that versus like, and I've done this before, and not even just with clients of color, all of my clients where sometimes they come in hot and heavy. They're
Yeah.
angry about something happened, and I'm like, calm down. I mean, and then I think to myself, that is so annoying, Catrice, why did you say that? But it's really, again, giving people the benefit of the doubt. Like really taking a second, and I think that sometimes we are so quick, and as women, we are fixers. We want everyone to feel great and comfortable,
Yeah.
but being able to, take a step back for yourself and be like, okay, what's coming up for me and how can I actually come alongside them versus like trying to beat them down or
Right.
push them off to that side.
Right. Yeah, really differentiating between discomfort and danger, because it's one thing to be in danger, there's one thing to like have harm, either verbal abuse or physical abuse happening, and then you just being uncomfortable with how somebody's responding because it's not how you would respond. And those are two very different things. And we also have to recognize where our bias shows, because I've been in rooms where, two women can say the same thing, and depending on their race, one could be dictated as assertive and one could be dictated as angry. And so making sure that we're really clear and really consistent with how we're viewing what people are saying based on the merit of their words and not the color of their skin. And this is a learned behavior. Like, some of these things that we're talking about is happening on a subconscious, unconscious level. And that's not our fault. How we were taught or things that has just become normal, that's not necessarily our fault, but how we respond to those things and how we grow and develop through those things and become aware. It's like the better, so you should do better type mentality. That's what really starts shifting the conversation and changes the impact that we can have for our people, both as clients and as coaches.
And I think that when we start shifting that conversation, one, I can't wait for the day to just be able to enter a program and be like, wow, I can show up as me. Will that ever happen? We'll see. We'll see. We hope so. We hope
Yeah.
this podcast changes the world. But I think it's just like really being able to come from a place of understanding
Yeah.
and love and care versus needing for us to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, are you showing up in the space with the intention that you're going to do whatever it takes to keep yourself comfortable, or are you showing up in the space, especially as a coach, to actually support those in your container? Like, are you here
Yeah.
because you just want the paycheck and you want to be comfortable, however that, if the shoe fits, the shoe fits type of deal,
Yeah.
wear it. Or are you showing up because you actually want to support? And then when you come to that point where you're like, okay, I want to support, how can you really look at your clients, and the goal is that you have a diverse clientele. How do you support each of them in their own tailored needs? And like, yes, there are group programs and there are group settings, but still we are having, even when you're having like hot seat coaching, you're in a group setting, but you are having one-on-one conversations just
Yeah.
in with an audience.
Yeah.
And so everyone is taking in like, oh, so and so spoke to Brianna this way, but so and so spoke to Susie this way, and like
Mhm.
all these things. And we're all picking up and registering, like, oh, well, Brianna is mixed and she wasn't treated as great, but then Susie's white and she was treated better. And like Tina is Asian and she, like, it was like this mix where some things mattered, some things didn't. And being very aware of like, how does that support look, especially in a group setting where
Yeah.
everyone is kind of taking in, like, we're going to call it stimuli, and pocketing that and digesting that into our subconscious.
Yeah. And especially like as coaches, we set the tone for the environment that we create for our clients, right? Ultimately the buck stops with us, and what we allow is the standard that our clients will show up as. And so especially like in that scenario that you were just talking about, Catrice, it's like, if you are setting the tone that it's okay to treat people differently within your space of the internet, within your container, then that in turn will impact how people think, either on that like unconscious level, and two, what they feel comfortable doing to each other in your container. You know what I mean? And I think it's really important that we create policies and spaces where all of our people can feel safe and taken care of, because that is our job as a coach. As a client, you have to kind of decide what you will and will not allow, and that has to be like good boundaries for yourself. But as a coach, it's our job to keep our clients safe. Like, in the spaces that we bring them into. And so we need to start being more conscious of, is this actually a safe space for my people, or am I creating an environment either intentionally or unintentionally that makes it hard for certain people to be a part of that room?
Yeah, that reminded me of an experience where I
Share.
think that, well, and this is going to get dove into like in another episode, but teaser. When we were on that retreat, because Brianna and I did meet in a coaching program, that's how we became friends. When we
Mm-hmm.
were on that retreat, I think that, like, as you were talking about that, and I was really, like, it just, how we treat each person and that, we set the tone.
Mm-hmm.
If that program was coming to an end when we were on that retreat, I very much wonder how other participants in the program would have behaved after
After.
the coach treated you the way that she did because of how you were reacting to how she was treating us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like that, again, setting the tone, like what you allow is going to be the baseline of
Yeah.
what everyone else thinks is okay.
Well, even like we're going to dive so much deeper into this, but even like within that setting, I very much felt like the angry black girl, the one that was causing waves, that was just like couldn't take the joke, that was just like interrupting the fun. And I knew that I was leaving that container, and I knew that I wasn't going back. And so I made the decision that it was okay for me to kind of rock the boat a little bit, especially because I was like at a level 10 with how things were going. But if the situation was different, if I still had time in that container, if things were different, I'm not sure that I would have responded that way, because I didn't want to be perceived as the hard client, the one that like makes everything
Which I think
uncomfortable
is
for
so
everyone.
interesting because I didn't think you were really coming off as an angry black woman. But like, of course, me being me with all my experiences and everything, of course I wouldn't see it like that, but I can definitely see how other people in who were in the room on that retreat could have seen that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
perceived that. But I think that kind of what you just shared is, I mean, why we were like, this is episode 1, is because this is so prevalent where we are so strategic in how we show up. You were like, container is ending, I'm not coming back, I'm going to be my full self.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
At the time, and again, we're going to dive into this in another episode, but I was way more timid and
Yeah.
I didn't stand up and defend myself when there were moments where I was like, I'm not being treated the way that I would like to be treated or what is comfortable. But I had already signed a contract for more time in this space. Of course, that contract at the time of this recording is null. It no longer exists, thankfully, because ultimately after the experience, I was like, but I also had a really hard time even after when it came time before everything that really caused this like ripple effect of me no longer having this contract. I remember night 1 thinking, I don't know if I really want to be in this container anymore
Yeah.
of that retreat. But I was worried about being perceived in such a way if I spoke up and said that I didn't want to be like, I wanted to cancel a contract, which is fully within my right. Like, I knew that, but I didn't want to be the angry black woman. I was worried about the conversations that would be had when I wasn't in the room.
Yeah.
Conversations being had behind my back and how,
Yeah.
it'd be like, oh, she's so angry. She's so difficult when everyone else wasn't going to get to see this like broad picture of like it wasn't just like one day I was difficult. It was these little things happened and I was just expressing myself and saying,
Mm.
hey, and honoring, and truly it comes down to being able to honor myself, being able to be like, I don't feel comfortable. I want to cancel a contract.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting how it's often when black women are standing up for themselves or others that they're labeled as angry. And this goes even beyond like the coaching space. Like I can distinctly remember right now in in high school, like anytime like that I was with my friend group at the time, if I like got upset about something because somebody was being mean to me or they said something that was inappropriate and I like checked someone, everybody would be like, oh, watch out, Brianna's black girl's coming out. And that internally, like gave, like, it ingrains in me that me showing up for myself, me defending myself, me telling people no or that something wasn't okay, that is associated with me being black and that is associated with something negative. And it, and that's like a societal thing that I believe has been ingrained due to American history that we're not going to dive into, right? But like
Yeah.
even from as young as, elementary school, middle school, people have these perceptions and it continues as we get older. And so I think it's really important, like as like a gut check for the white coaches listening, like, okay, is whatever your client is telling you, is she actually angry and being difficult, or is she trying to express to you a need that's not being met? And instead of responding to her in the defense, like, could we come back to ourselves and like really check in and be like, ooh, is she right? Like, are you upset that, she's called out something that you don't want to address within yourself or within your container? Or are you upset that, she didn't timidly say something just the right way? Are you upset that you did something that hurt her and she's brave enough to tell you about it? And, like, we're all human. We all make mistakes. Things happen. Sometimes we don't respond the way that we wish that we could have. But are you going to be a big enough person to go back and apologize? Are you going to be a big enough person to be like, hey, I got this wrong and that's not how I want to show up for you? Or are you going to continue to act like she's being crazy and like dismiss whatever it is that your client is telling you just because it's not what you wanted to hear?
Ooh, mic drop. Mic
With
drop.
love.
With live, laugh, love, everyone. Live, laugh, love. Like, but no, it's so true. Everything you said just like resonates. And I knew going into this podcast, like these episodes, we were just gonna like really hit home because truly it's like coming back to that comfort. Are you here to keep yourself comfortable or are you here to support?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, is she really being difficult or are you just upset that you're being called out, like called on your shit?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard receiving feedback sometimes as a client, but it is really, really hard to receive feedback as a coach from a client. It's really hard. It feels even extra embarrassing. I don't know how it feels for you, Brianna, but it feels extra embarrassing when you are called out for the fact that like maybe you aren't showing up in a way or like you
Yeah.
aren't supporting enough for whatever the reason is. Like, it hurts
Yeah.
because we pour so much time and energy into our programs, into our clients. And so when they come back to us and they're like, I didn't get anything out of this, or I don't feel supported. And sometimes that's just not your intention. Your intention wasn't that. But again, we also have to remember that the baggage that we show up with is not always going to be the same baggage that someone else is showing up with. And we have not
Yeah.
rummaged through all the luggage.
Yeah.
And so, again, truly, are you trying to keep yourself comfortable or are you trying to be supportive and really improve the program so then it can be the best it can be for your clients and they can get the results that you want for them ultimately? Because that's why we join programs to begin with. That's why we
Yeah.
run these programs.
Yeah. And I truly believe that, 99.9% of the white coaches listening right now have good intentions, have good hearts. They're not coming into this being malicious. And I just want to honor the fact that you don't know what you don't know. And so the fact that you're on this podcast right now listening to us speak and being hit with things that might feel really uncomfortable and might bring up feelings of shame or discomfort or whatever the case may be, this is you being here tells me that you're a good coach, that you want to learn, that you want to create safe spaces for your people. And so I just want to honor the fact that you're like might feel like you're taking a verbal lashing right now, and I hope that that's not the case. I hope that you feel so loved and so cared for, and just that this is just a space that you're being enlightened to think about things differently maybe. But the fact is that now that you know, what are we going to do about it? And I think the big thing for me for this episode, it's really about white coaches being conscious of the fact that their experience is not their clients who are people of color's experience, and that's okay. But with that in mind, how are we adapting? How are we shifting? How are we creating spaces for those clients that leaves them feeling really supported? And for the Black women listening or the women of color listening, it's really about like, you don't have to show up as pieces of yourself. You should be able to show up fully yourself. And if you're not able to do that, maybe it's time we start reconsidering the spaces that we're in, or start thinking about having conversations with the people that we care about and with the coaches that we have about what are the needs that are not being met, with love, with respect, but being really honest, because we invest in these coaching things. Like, we spend a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy into coaching. We should be able to feel comfortable to show up as ourselves. We should be able to feel comfortable to like be able to provide feedback without being painted in a narrative that's incorrect. And if we're not able to do that, we need to shift our spaces, because there are coaching spaces that are inclusive. There are coaching spaces where there are white coaches ready and willing to create space for us and hold space for us. And if we're in a space that we're not, we just need to ditch it. Like, if there's no improvement, if there's no one who is like willing to hear us, then it's okay to leave. And it's okay to love ourselves enough and respect ourselves enough to be okay with being labeled as an angry Black woman, even if we know that's not true. And I think that's what it really comes down to. Sometimes we have to own the fact that, like, I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to be the angry Black girl, and I don't care, because I know I'm not angry. I know that I was right. And that's just what it is. I know that's how I feel. I know this is like what the expectations were, and I can't control how other people perceive me, but I do get to control how other people, what I allow other people to do to me. And that's not a balance that we should have to have, but it's a decision that we get to make. And I think that that's really important for us to keep in mind.
No, truly, because it's not that we're angry, it's that people are uncomfortable when we don't perform in the politeness at our own expense. And I think that so often we, and I've done this where I don't show up and I don't advocate for myself, but it's to be polite, and I always end up suffering more
Yeah.
than if I had just like bit the bullet and been like, okay, like, I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna be me. And I know that I'm coming from a place of wanting to be seen and heard. And it's okay if they see me that way.
Yeah.
It would be nice not to. But ultimately, if you are honoring yourself, that's what's most important.
1,000%. Okay. Catrice, any last words before we give our peeps our heart check and close out?
Honestly, no. I feel like we dumped so much, and kind of reiterating what Brianna said for those white coaches who are listening who are like, wow, this was a lot. The goal, the intention is not to attack, but it's to inform and really create a space where we can have these conversations where your clients can come to you and be more comfortable coming to you, and you can react and know how to show up in a way that doesn't diminish what they're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah.
1,000%. Okay, guys, so we have made it to our heart check section of this episode. And so in my coaching spaces, I like to do heart checks with my client. And it's really a time and a space for us to take whatever we've learned in this lesson, or in this case, this episode, and do some reflecting and really start to apply the lessons that we've gotten. And so for this one, I'm going to do a heart check for our white coaches, and then a heart check for our women of color. Obviously, I think that both heart checks are super applicable to both parties, so feel free to do it all. But I really want you to focus here and there, okay? So for our white coaches listening right now, I want you to ask yourself, when is the last time you assumed someone was angry when they were just being direct? What is one way that you can stretch your listening muscles this week, or go back and address an issue that you might have handled in a way that you wish you hadn't? For our Black listeners, coaches, clients, I want you to be thinking about, in what spaces have you made yourself small, and where do you need to start taking up more space? What conversations do you need to have in order to make that happen? And what spaces do you need to let go of because you'll never be able to take up the space that you need? I think it's really important, no matter if you're Black, white, purple, blue, that you are honoring yourself, that you're respecting yourself, because people treat you the way that you allow them to. So if you allow people to think that they can disrespect you, that they can dismiss you, that they can whatever, then they'll do it. And so we all have to be really clear with what our boundaries are. We all have to be really clear about what we will and will not tolerate in any space, but especially in our coaching containers, both as coaches and as clients. And we have to learn how to respectfully stand up for ourselves and recognize that every space isn't our space, and the perception that people have for us is outside of our control. And sometimes it's none of our business. It's none of our business. Black women, it's none of our business if they think we're angry. It's annoying that they do, but it's really not our business, because if you can honestly, with a pure heart and good intentions, look at yourself and be like, I wasn't angry. I was sad. I was disappointed. I was standing up for myself. I was communicating a need. Then you know you're not angry, and you don't have to take on that label just because somebody gave it to you. And white coaches, if you can honestly say to yourself, I'm doing the best that I can. I'm showing up how I know how to show up. I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm trying my best to create safe spaces for everyone, no matter who they are. Then the fact is you're never going to make everyone happy, and that's okay. But the fact is that you have to be conscious and you have to be trying, and the rest is outside your hands. So I'm so happy that you tuned in today. I hope that it was helpful, and I'm just excited for this journey with you guys.
Awesome. Well, just like that, we are 3 Black women and their white coach, and this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Friends, thanks so much for joining us today.
We've loved getting to spend this time here with you, but don't let the conversation stop here. Drop us a message or connect with us on social media. All the details can be found in the show notes,
along with some great resources to help you on this journey of helping make the coaching industry more inclusive. Until next time, we're 3 Black women
and their white coach,
doing the work, holding the space, and building something better.